Okay. Okay, any questions on anything covered? Okay, Paul.
Bhante, I have a question about that non-covetousness in the 10 wholesome karma path. Bhante explained that as a very strong desire to take other people's possessions. I think most of the time we don't have that. Does that mean while not having that, whenever I do not have that, I'm accumulating wholesome karma already? For example, up to this point in my life, I cannot recall any moment that I have that kind of thought. So does that mean I have already accumulated that wholesome karma for so many years? And also similarly to the second, the abhijja, that ill will. If anyone who doesn't not have the thought to take other, inflict any harm to others, does that mean he or she has already accumulated wholesome karma already?
Yes. No, first, in the list of the 10 unwholesome, they're called the 10 unwholesome karma-pattas. So those are the 10 strong kinds of unwholesome karma. So in regard to the 3 mental ones, you see, what makes an action a karma-patta is that it's a karma that's strong enough to take on the role of generating rebirth into the next existence. And so there can be kinds of covetousness which are not so strong that they become a karma-patta. For example, somebody has maybe a nice iPhone, and so I see their iPhone, and I like their iPhone, and I think, oh, I wish that I had an iPhone like that. And so that desire for the iPhone, that sort of craving for the iPhone, that's a kind of covetousness, and it's generating unwholesome karma, but it's not a karma-patta as long as I don't think I want to take that person's iPhone when they're not looking. Then when I want to get possession of somebody else's item, then it becomes a karma-patta. But if I'm desiring things that other people possess, but it never manifests in the form of the thought, let me take their possession, let me find some way to get possession of their item, then it's not a karma-patta. But whenever there's covetousness, even in a mild degree, then it's a form of greed, so it's unwholesome, it's creating unwholesome karma. But the karma won't be so strong that it can take over that role of generating the rebirth. Similarly, with ill will, it can be the case that I get angry with somebody, with many people. I feel resentment towards them, I don't like them. But as long as it doesn't reach the level of becoming the thought, may that person get sick, may that person fail in what they're doing, may that person die, then it's not a karma-patta. But still, whenever there's that anger, resentment, aversion towards somebody, it's a form of ill will, just not strong enough to become a karma-patta. Does that make it clear?
No, my question is about the positive side. As long as I don't have the ill will strong enough to inflict suffering to others, or my greed is not strong, I don't have the greed
to take
possessions from others, does that mean I have been accumulating wholesome karma?
Not necessarily.
Why?
because one could still have a lot of greed, a lot of ill will. So that is creating the unwholesome karma. But it's not strong enough to become a kamapata. It might not, if it doesn't take the form of wanting to get the possession of others or wanting others to undergo some kind of misfortune, then it doesn't become a kamapata. But just the thoughts of greed, thoughts of ill will are unwholesome karma.
How about the thought of non-covetousness?
Yeah.
And I don't recall I have any covetousness. So that means since I was born, I have accumulated wholesome karma due to non-covetousness. That's my question.
I would say so. Yeah, if it's not wanting, if that non-covetousness, if it takes the form of not just the absence of covetousness, but a true sense of relinquishment, of sort of giving up or renouncing possessions, not wanting to take, not experiencing greed for possessions, then I'd say it's creating wholesome karma.
And there's a difference between non-covetousness and giving, for example, stuff to others, right? Just as the second one, there's a difference between, for example, wishing metta to others and also the absence of ill will. So I'd like to know the difference. For example, if I don't have any ill will, do I accumulate the wholesome karma, or I have to be actively practice metta meditation in order to get the wholesome karma? That's my question.
It's not a matter of practicing the metta meditation, but I would say the absence, let's say non-ill will, implies that there's goodwill towards others, that one wishes others to be well and happy. It doesn't have to be done within this context of sitting formally in meditation and developing the metta meditation. But when one has thoughts of goodwill towards others, then that is generating the wholesome karma. If one has thoughts of not wanting to get the possessions of others, then that's non-covetousness.
So I only have like indifferent thoughts, not relevant at all. Does that accumulate good, wholesome karma?
It depends on what what you mean by indifferent thoughts.
I have no, the absence of ill will to take possessions of others, or the covetousness to take possessions
but
of
there has
others,
to be
or
there has to be some positive content to the mind, unless you're in a deep meditative absorption.
Okay.
So, if there's no covetousness, no ill will present, but what is present in the mind?
That one is greed rooted, the other one is ill will rooted, and the third one is the neutral one. Could it be the neutral one?
Let's say if there's no covetousness, no ill will, and the mind is in a state of calm equanimity, that would be a wholesome state of mind. So that would be creating wholesome karma.
Thank you.
Okay, you're wrong.
Yeah, I have a question about carelessly. The sutta on carelessly.
Yeah.
The sutta talks about a wise person approves of replies that were formulated carefully.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say what a wise person is supposed to do when someone formulates questions carelessly. So if someone formulates a good question carefully with well-rounded and coherent words and phrases, then the wise person approves of it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say what happens to what the wise person is supposed to do if the questions heard was formed, I'm not talking about Bo Hui, I'm sorry. I was just thinking about, I'm talking about just in general, when we hear people pose questions carelessly, what should a wise person or someone aspire to be a wise person respond? What should be the response?
If you are the person to whom the question is addressed?
No.
Or if you're just sitting in the audience listening, hearing the question?
Well, what does the sutta say? The sutta doesn't say whether the wise person approves of a question posed to him, right?
Yeah.
He just approves of a question that's posed in general.
Yeah.
So I'm asking about that situation. Do we just remain silent, we don't do anything, and just deep down disapprove of that?
Okay, if the question were to be addressed to me, a question that's carelessly formulated, then I would ask the questioner to reformulate the question to make it more precise, more pertinent, more meaningful. If I was sitting in the audience, then there's not much I could do except grumble in my mind about the person who's asking the question.
Okay, thank you. May I ask the second question?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
This is about the sutta about stains. Talked about the situation when one is deposited in hell. So, So, and Bande actually talked about the difference between being immoral and being, I think one is envious, the other one is
miserliness.
Miser.
Yeah.
And so my guess is that being immoral means that the person actually takes some action, something that actually actively harming others.
Yeah,
so that would be immoral, is that right?
I
definition?
think, the word here is dusila, the Pali expression. So that would imply somebody who is violating the 5, say, the basic precepts, like killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, speaking falsely. But then what I said is that suppose the person is not immoral in that sense, but the person has envy and miserliness, particularly envy. So I think, in my view, that just having envy and miserliness on their own, without it manifesting in English, would not be sufficient to create such strong negative karma as to lead to a rebirth in hell. But this would happen when that envy leads to induces some kind of action, spiteful action to harm the other person of whom one is envious.
No, but our Buddhist trainings from other teachers is that mental actions actually has the strongest karmic impact, more so than the bodily and spoken action.
In my opinion, just about all normal people who have not reached any kind of stage of realization will tend to have states of envy and miserliness. I mean, they'll arise sort of their own accord as a result of past habituation. And so those kind of spontaneous mental states of miserliness and of envy that arise, of course they're unwholesome, they'll be generating unwholesome karma. But in my opinion, just when they arise in that natural, spontaneous way, they're not strong enough to lead to a rebirth in such a low realm of existence. But it's when, you could say, if that mental state, if one buys into that mental state and nurtures it and sort of cultivates it in the mind, and it becomes very strong, then maybe even if it doesn't manifest in action, then it would be strong enough to drag one down. But generally that kind of mental state will manifest in some way in action, in bodily action or in speech by which one denigrates that person, the person of whom one is envious, and tries to harm their reputation and so on. In that case, I would say the bodily action and the verbal action creates strong, wholesome karma. It sort of strengthens the wholesome karma.
Thank you.
Okay, Allison.
Bhante, today's whole class, the content of the sutra, I felt there's a tremendous of discrimination against the classes. For example, page 207, it talks about without expectations. One is from the poor with little food and drink, that he's ugly, his dwarfness, and
I know that. Yeah.
And in addition to that, talking about the fool, carefulness, and all the stuff is very dichotomous.
Yeah.
And I find there is a subtle superiority, arrogance, and also has a strong classes here. And I find it's very hard for me to digest at today's Trump era.
Yeah.
So I don't know what, I have a question. Can you tell me what is the purpose of all this sutra if that's only tell us shit and not shit in the very extreme, both ends? It's only tell us either black and white, right or wrong.
Yeah.
And just like you said, every normal person, we all have an enviness.
Yeah.
We all have immoral issue, and we all have stinginess.
Yeah.
How do you deal with all this dichotomous situation?
No, it's a good question. And I have to say, I find that passage a bit disturbing also, about the one who is without expectation. And it seems to me a bit odd that it links being born into a low family and poverty with being ugly and physically deformed, as though somehow the two go together. But I don't know how to deal with it. It's just what comes down in the text. Anybody else have any ideas about that?
I think the text was given at a historical time.
So
in that and the Buddha was trying to give a simile.
Yeah.
He's not talking about this is, if you're being born in the low family, you will have no expectation. He's saying that just like everybody would expect that. It's a simile. It's not a diction.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's to illustrate the point of somebody who won't have expectation of being coronated as a kshatriya.
And if you think about what the simile is trying to say, so if I'm an immoral person, it's as if I'm putting myself in that kind of situation, I'll never be able to be liberated. So in order to be liberated, you try to... I think we're taking it too literally if we... It's a historical text.
Yeah, that's a good, very good reply,
Bhante, we need to put a bodhisattva into the first category, right? Without any expectation. Yes, Bhante, the answer should be positive, right? Because when a bodhisattva hears about the final liberation of an arahantship, he or she has no expectation at all.
Buddha will be liberated.
I mean, the goal of arahantship.
Well, of course, the Buddha he's not going to, or a bodhisattva is not going to be expecting any day to gain arhatship, because that would be the end to the bodhisattva career. But the bodhisattva would have, we call this an expectation, at least if they're practicing diligently the paramitas, that in so many cosmic aeons, I will achieve Buddhahood. And Buddhahood includes within it the destruction of the asavas. And so that would be included, I would say, within the expectation of a bodhisattva, but not in the near or immediate future, unless it's a bodhisattva with one life to go before achieving Buddhahood. Anything else? Okay, Carolyn?
It's not so much a question,
Yeah.
but something that was on TV last night that's relevant.
Yeah.
We were speaking earlier about in certain countries praying to deities and
Yeah.
spirits and so on. With the situation in Thailand with the boys stuck in the caves,
Yeah.
last night was showing visual images what actually happened. And the thousands of people that were gathered for all the days waiting for the boys to be removed, they were praying to this deity. They were drawing like lines on the TV so you could see. It looked like some kind of a god laying in a prone position in the mountains. If you saw this, you could see how the mind could take it as a deity. They prayed and prayed that it's some known deity that helps in times of danger. Thousands of people had prayer focused, and then suddenly there was this way to get these boys out of the cave that was absolutely not doable. And afterwards, the commentators were saying they all witnessed miracles, whether it was the Navy SEALs from England and so on. They said they all believe that the prayers to that deity got the boys out and enabled them to do what needed to be done. Because when you see what was done, it's preposterous that you could get out of the caves alive. But just on that note that we were speaking about it, and the prayer was so intense, they didn't stop praying 24 hours a day. So, the power of things that we might think are not things and don't work. It was an extraordinary presentation.
Which program was it?
2020. If it's repeated, it would knock you off your seat.
Which program?
Literally. 2020. Repeated, would knock you off your seat.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, then we can end for the day. Okay, so we'll end with 3 more half bows.